What's up, guys? It's Mike for Sim Racing 604, and welcome to Gran Turismo version 1.11. Today is January 26th, 2018, and we have just got an update for Gran Turismo Sport that is not only big for this game, it is big for sim racing in general. And what I mean by that is, in my opinion, there have been very few updates that have been as significant to a game as this one is. So 1.11 brings a whole slew of changes, and they are in general things that fans have been asking for. So I'm going to, before I get into details, I'll just run through high level what we're getting. So first thing is a few changes to the Magiorre track. I believe I'm saying that right. The Italian fictional track that landed in Gran Turismo from the inception. There's some short versions that they added. Monza is the track that everyone's excited about. It's a welcome addition to Gran Turismo for sure. It's a real world track. Um, there have been 4 new single-player events, including 3 series, so very, very cool, and 10 new cars. So very, very excited about that. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with this revision, so let's get into it in a little more detail. So first thing we want to look at, actually we'll just go to a time trial to look at the new tracks. And as mentioned, we have these now a large array of Magiorre, the GP layout we've had for some time, as well as the reverse. But as you can see, there's a bunch of smaller new layouts for Magiorre. The east, west, and center sections are now parsed out, and you can run them forward and reverse. Very, very cool. But that is not the big news in tracks, of course. The big news, as I mentioned, is the addition of Monza. And as you can see, it is evading me. Where did they put Monza? There we go. So as you can see, oh, they put a no chicane version in. That's interesting. So as you can see, the actual name is Autodromo Nazionale Monza. So what this track actually is a real-world track, as I mentioned, 3.6 miles for the GP version, which is home to the Italian Grand Prix. It's been in this version since the year 2000. And obviously, this track resides in Monza, Italy. And what's famous about this track on the F1 circuit is the fastest overall speeds for a lap happen at Monza. It's a very wide open, very, very fast track. As you can see by the little icon scrolling, excuse me, by the little red ball pinging around the track there. There are a few chicanes, but for the most part, you are flat out in most sections of this track. So depending on the car you use, there will be sections you can or cannot take flat out. So very, very excited to have this here. A couple more quick facts. The Monza has been around as a track since about 1922 in different versions, and the track seats over 110,000 people. So very excited to have this in Gran Turismo, no doubt. Let's quickly jump back here and we'll take a look at the new campaign modes. So within GT League, what they've done is they've added, you can see the 4 new icons there for beginner, amateur, professional, and endurance. And we'll just quickly take a look. So the first one they've added to the beginner is the Raptor Survival. So obviously featuring the Ford F-150 Raptor on 3 different tracks. Yeah, I'm not necessarily always a fan of one-make races, but kind of cool to have something to do with that pickup truck. Going back to the amateur league here, so the J Sports Media, I think a lot of people will be excited about this. So this is a Japanese-only series, 3-race series, capping the horsepower at 394. So we'll get into one of the cars that I think will become extremely relevant to this very, very soon. The professional league, there is actually something I'm super excited about, which is La Festa Cavallino. As you can tell, Italian is not my specialty. So, Festival of Horses is what that actually means, and it's referring to Ferrari. So this is a one-make race, open to different models, but has to be a Ferrari, and as you can see, they managed to get two Italian tracks, one fictional, one real, and then the Nürburgring as well. So Nürburgring GP, 6 laps there. So very excited to see what shakes down there. I'm thinking probably the LaFerrari will dominate, but we shall see. So very cool to have that. And lastly, what I'm most excited to race in the endurance is a Group 3 endurance race. I'm so stoked about this, and they really crushed it. It's 30 laps at Monza, which I think is perfect. Um, of course, you could just create this, I suppose, in arcade mode, but I think it's very, very cool to have this as part of the campaign mode. So 30 laps at Monza in Group 3 looks like there's going to be some exciting races there. Let's jump into the new cars that they have added. We will start with the Toyota. There's actually, I believe, 3 new Toyotas. So the first one is what I was referring to when I said the J Series. This car will probably become relevant. So 325 horsepower currently. Of course, you could step it up to level 2 and maybe level 3 and probably bring that max horsepower up close to the cap, should you choose. If not, I think it's just going to be a well-balanced car to run on that J Series. The Supra featured an inline-6 engine. The turbo version is what you're seeing here that had about 320 horsepower. They did make a normally or naturally aspirated version, which was about 220 horsepower, but Gran Turismo wisely has chosen not to include that, and I think the 45,000 credit sticker is just about right for this car, and featured a 6-speed manual, and this thing weighed just over 3,000 pounds. We also have, I guess I didn't need to exit there. We also have this, the Toyota 2000 GT from 1967. So, 160,000, believe me, is a steal for this car. This actually has become a collectible. At the time of its release, this Toyota 2000 was more expensive than the Jaguar E-Type or the Porsche 911. We often think of Toyota as somewhat of a pedestrian brand. You see, probably depending on where you are in the world, you probably see a lot of Toyotas driving around, but they absolutely hit this one out of the ballpark. It is a beautiful, beautiful machine by all rights, featuring a 2-liter straight 6 and pumping out somewhere around 150 horsepower. And yeah, just extremely well designed. It is a beautiful, beautiful looking car. In my opinion, the nicest looking Toyota ever built. And lastly, we have this, the Toyota FT1, obviously a concept car. So this will fit into your Group X category in the game. About 500 horsepower there. You can see it, 486 horsepower. Believed to be, when this is released, a 5-liter V8, still in concept form. Apparently, they are moving forward with it in some capacity, but currently, this is as close to driving it as you will be able to get. Loosely based on the Supra, but yeah, as you can see, quite radical styling changes there. So another entry to the Group X category. Let's jump out of Toyota. And the Daihatsu update, I believe, is just a museum entry. So if you're into that, fair bit going on in the European update. So we'll start with the Jaguar. So the Jaguar XJ13 from 1966 is what we're looking at. They're putting it in the Group X category. First thing you notice is that price tag. 20 million credits is what it's going to cost you to own the Jaguar XJ13. This featured a 5-speed manual driving the rear wheels to about 500 horsepower and weighed just under 2,500 pounds. Actually, they have the weight listed at 2,200 pounds, but I tend to disagree with that. I think it was a bit heavier than that, but as you can see, this thing, beautiful, beautiful, reminiscent of the Ferrari 330 P4, which we'll look at in a little bit, or perhaps a classic Alfa Romeo or something like that. Extremely smooth lines and, yeah, low slung, exposed engine in the back there. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful car to look at. So jumping from Jaguar, let's look at the McLaren. So the McLaren F1 from 1994 has made it to Gran Turismo, and as you can see, we get to choose our color here. I've always known this as an orange car. Um, so 1,000,000 credits is what it will cost, and I believe that's about accurate to what it was back in the day. And I'll tell you a quick story about the F1. For those who are not old enough to remember when the McLaren F1 first started appearing on the scene, this thing was absolutely obscene as a race car. Sorry, as a road car. It was blowing people's minds that this thing could even make it road legal. The center seat was something, I don't know if it was entirely unique, but one of the first to sort of break mainstream. Of course, this was before the internet was as we know it now, and so there was legends of this car where you sit in the middle, and it had a 0 to 60 speed of under 4 seconds, which is becoming more and more commonplace. In fact, some of the hypercars are dipping into the high twos, but for the time, a 0 to 60 speed of under 4 seconds was just absolutely incredible. And yeah, this thing just became legendary. 626 horsepower, just amazing. Like I mean, that's comparative to now to a BMW M5 or something like that. But at the time, once again, it was just this performance, you know, phenom, and just kind of took the world by storm. So I'm very excited to have that in here. They did a F1 GTR version. I believe that's what it's called, the McLaren F1 GTR. But anyway, appeared in Assetto Corsa, and you've seen Billy Strange or some other guys like that doing races in that car, and it's very, very cool. So either way, I'm glad to have this in Gran Turismo. It is a cool addition, one of the most legendary road cars of my generation, and absolutely beautiful to look at. Jumping back here, we will jump down first into the Ferrari. And again, we have that one make race for Ferrari now. So the first car we will look at is the 512 BB Berlinetta Boxer. In case you're wondering what BB stands for, and in case you're wondering what the 512 means, it is a 5-liter V12 engine which sits behind the driver. This is the predecessor to the Testarossa, actually. The Testarossa, of course, much more famous with those lines, those scoops along the side that made it look like nothing else on the road. But this is the predecessor to that, the 512 BB. It's a flat 12 engine and made it to a 5-speed manual. So very good performance numbers here. 350 horsepower and just over 3,000 pounds. Beautiful car to look at and should be a blast to drive. Oops. Next up, we have the 1967. How many times am I going to do that? 1967 Ferrari 330 P4. Look at this thing. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. As cars go, I don't think there's many on this level in terms of styling. This thing is just gorgeous. It really, really is. I love the look of the 330 P4. It's since appeared in 2 different sims. You can get it in Project Cars 2 as well as Assetto Corsa as part of their 70th anniversary pack. So just amazing, amazing lines on this car, and it was made as a endurance car to rival Ford's GT. So it had some very good success. 60-degree V12 4-liter engine, pumping out about 440 horsepower, 450 horsepower, somewhere in there. Notice the curb weight. 1,700 pounds. This thing is a legit race car. 450 horsepower with 1,700 pounds is a good, very good power to weight ratio. So this looks to be a beast in this car. If you have some time, do look up the 330 P4's history. The rivalry between Ferrari and Ford for Le Mans was quite a story, and just one make. They're kind of one-upping each other year after year, and it's actually a very, very cool read if you have 5 minutes, so do look that up. Jumping back here, we have one more Italian brand to look at, which is the Lamborghini. And then we'll jump to the American cars. The Lamborghini Diablo GT. Man, once again. Okay, Lamborghini Diablo GT. So just 300,000 credits, which I think is a pretty modest price for what you get. So as you can see from the performance numbers there, 571 horsepower in this thing. It is heavy. It's about 3,300 pounds. Made it to a 6-speed manual transmission, and this featured a speed 0 to 60 speed, that is, of 3.5 seconds, so very, very quick. I mentioned that that is about the same performance numbers as the McLaren F1 car. So yeah, very, very cool to have this one. And let's quickly jump over to the American cars. First one we want to look at is the Ford GT. So this car actually, and I won't press X. The Ford GT from 2006 featured a 5.4-liter supercharged V8, pumping out 550 horsepower. This is very, very cool. For those who did find time or will find time to read up about the 330 P4, you'll see that it crosses paths with the Ford GT40 Mark IV, and eventually the GT40 was scrapped, and it just became kind of lore in the world of cars. And then Ford was nice enough to bring us the GT as sort of a long overdue successor to the GT40. So very, very cool to have this car back on the road after all those years, and now it has come to Gran Turismo. And once again, you're talking about 0 to 60 numbers. Actually, my apologies. I read the wrong line there. The Lamborghini Diablo did not have those 0 to 60 numbers of under 4 seconds. The Ford GT did. I apologize about that. So 150,000 credits will get you this 2006 Ford GT in Gran Turismo, and I think that is a steal. I have a feeling, I haven't driven it yet, but I have a feeling it is going to be a strong contender in that, what is it, N500, N600 category. Just a really, really well-built car. Lastly, but definitely not leastly, is the Dodge Viper GTS. So the Dodge Viper GTS from 2002. Again, for those not old enough to remember, this actually, the Dodge Viper came many years before this, but it was just the most obscene American car possible. It brought back, memories of old school muscle where cars had just too much horsepower and focused on straight line insanity, and the Dodge Viper lived up to that. You are not misreading that. That displacement is 8 liters. It featured an 8-liter V10 engine, 450 horsepower. By today's standards, that's 75% the power of a modern BMW M5 and barely more horsepower than a BMW M3. So not mind-blowing anymore, but at the time, 450 horsepower was just some obscene number, way, way more than a Mustang or anything like that. And I think it probably had quite a bit more than a Corvette, but I would need to verify that. But anyway, sort of the most obscene American straight line car of the time, this Dodge Viper, and it lost out in almost any technical category you could name to the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis, but it was very much a testosterone-inducing car, this Dodge Viper GTS. So another cool addition. I think it's probably going to be tough to drive. It had so much power to those rear wheels and just was not set up for racetracks. It was more of a straight line car, but I remember driving this back in the old Gran Turismo days, going back into the late 90s even, and thinking how cool it was that I got to drive a Dodge Viper. So for me at least, I'm very excited to have this car as part of the update. That's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much. Happy driving. Let me know which cars you are enjoying in this big, big update, and we will see you guys next time.